Pleasant good morning, Virgin Islands, and this beautiful day in paradise. It's June 16th, 2026, and happy Paradise Tuesday to all. Once again, it's my pleasure to welcome you to At the Table with Crucian Educator. This is yours truly, Riddell Peterson. I'm the host for this 1 hour radio talk show and the number one radio station in the Caribbean, WSTX. You're listening and your radio dial to 970 AM, and it's also being streamed live on Facebook. So if you missed the live recording, the live streaming, you can always go back to Facebook page of WSTX and listen. You could also give your input on the WSTX Facebook page regarding this show today. It is a talk show. You're welcome to call in. We may have a guest. So I'm in suspense too as well because I'm not sure if the guest is going to call in, but we'll see what happens. At this point, I'm just going to ask for a moment of silence, just a moment of silence as we keep in mind all those who have lost their lives due to gun violence recently here in the territory. Amen. Be blessed. And at this time, too, I would like to read a press release. There have been many press releases regarding the recent and tragic murder of a 15-year-old. So I would like to, and there have been messages of condolences from several government officials. Well, I'd like to add to that too, as well, a media press release. This was put out June 14th, 2026. I haven't heard it on any of the radio shows that I listen to. So I want to read it to you. And this one came from the office of Angel Boques Jr. Statement from Senator at Large Angel Boques following the tragic loss of Trevante Etienne. Okay, my heart is heavy as we mourn the tragic loss of Trevante Etienne, whose life was senselessly taken by gun violence in Savannah St. Thomas. No mother should have to bury her child. No family should have to endure the kind of pain. No community should have to keep grieving the loss of its young people. What makes this moment even more painful is while we were on the Senate floor debating Bill number 36-0144 on the future of firearms policies and public safety in the Virgin Islands, a community was struck by the heartbreaking news that a young life had been stolen. A 15-year-old should be dreaming about his future, not becoming another name we mourn. I extend my deepest condolence to Trevon's mother, family, friends, classmates, and the entire Savannah community. Their pain is real and not as a territory. We cannot become numb to it. Trevon deserved to grow older. He deserved the chance to dream, to live, and to fulfill his purpose. No single law can heal a grieving mother. No vote can bring back a child whose life was taken. But doing nothing is not an option. We must confront illegal gun, violent crimes, robbery related shootings, youth conflict, and conditions that continue to place our children in danger. I also join the mother's plea for answer. To anyone who saw something, heard something, or knew anything, please come forward. No piece of information is too small. Silence protects violence, and our children deserve better. Anyone with information should contact the VIPD Criminal Investigation Bureau at 340-774-2211, extension 555 or 5556. So that's extension 5555 or 5556. Or Crime Stoppers Virgin Islands at 800-222-8477. Tips may be made anonymously. We know it's a small community, but have confidence that your information will be confidential and your identity will not be revealed. Okay, continuing. As we debated Bill number 360144, I raised questions because public safety law must be fair, constitutional, and effective. But also, I want to be clear, our responsibility does not end with debate. It must continue through action, enforcement, prevention, mentorship, community support, and accountability. This is not only a policy issue, it is a policing issue. It is a community issue. It is a fairly family issue. It is a social issue. It requires elected officials, law enforcement, schools, parents, churches, community organization, artists, and radio stations and neighbors to work together to reach out to our young people before violence does. I also encourage parents, caregivers, students, educators, and community members who are hurting to seek support and check in on one another. Grieving or grief not only affects our family, it also affects an entire community. In the coming days, I will remain engaged with my colleagues, community leader, and relevant agencies on prevention, youth intervention, and public safety efforts throughout the territory. At this time, I fully respect the independence and integrity of law enforcement's ongoing investigation, and I encourage anyone who saw, heard, knows anything to come forward through the proper law enforcement channels. Our response must be immediate, coordinated, and sustained. Trevante deserves justice. His family deserves answers, and our territory deserves peace. May Trevante Etienne rest in peace. May his family be surrounded by strength, love, justice, and justice. And may we know his life not only with words, but with real action. And this was by Angel Bocas Jr., Senator at Large. It's well written. I'm impressed. Well, I felt it an obligation to read to you as our community continues to mourn the stolen life of Trevante Etienne. And I encourage everybody listening to consider this a community issue. It's not, all of us are affected. I thank you for listening. And again, prayers for the family and friends of Trevon Etienne. Okay, now continue on to the show. I have 3 questions for today's show. It's a call-in show. I may have a guest, as I said, not sure. We'll see what happens. But as usual, I try to present to you 3 questions for discussion at the table. Everyone is entitled to an opinion, to a, okay, we have a call, so let me go to the call now. Pleasant good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Peterson. How are you doing?
Oh, thank you. Okay, my surprise guest is called in. We have a former candidate for delegate to U.S. House of Representatives, and the reason I have him as a guest is from his perspective to give us some thoughts about this election cycle and the recent decisions made by the Board of Elections, since he actually experienced going through the process. And in my opinion, I was going to mention facts can be verified. Everybody's entitled to an opinion, an idea, a theory, a belief, a view, a perspective, and even a delusion. However, you're not entitled to your own facts. So I want to focus on the election process today. I want to have a discussion on the election cycle of 2026. And I have therefore invited also a candidate, former candidate, gubernatorial candidate, and his name is Ronald Pickard. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you for having me. Okay. First of all, I'd like to start by saying that this is by far the most disqualification for candidates for a particular office I've ever seen in modern history as it pertains to an office.
Repeat that.
That's number one. Number two, we all know every 2 years and every 4 years, petitions are circulated in the Virgin Islands as pertains to candidates for a particular office. So people of Virgin Islands, we're not beginners. We know that we have a high expectation of signing petitions at least every 2 years, if not every 4 years. There have been several disqualifications. Board of Election advises every single candidate the process as it pertains to being cleared in order for you to run for a particular office. This is a known fact. Now, remember now, Mr. Peterson, we're talking about known facts.
Correct.
For example, I want to start off with, right? This is gentleman from St. Thomas, McCloskey. Now, I don't know who this guy is, but obviously I've read about him like everybody else on social media. I his disqualification and said there was a discrepancy as pertains to the name on the petitions being signed. The people are indicated that they were misled. We, the people of the Virgin Islands, common sense we know. If we are approached with an individual circulating a petition for a candidate or for themselves, the first question we go ask when we are approached with a petition is what?
Who is the candidate?
Who is the candidate? That's one question. We want to know
what position.
Exactly. What's your party affiliation? And thirdly, they want to know what are they running for office, right?
Correct.
Those are the three main questions you ask any individual circulating a petition for any potential candidate. That's common sense. And it's the individual who is circulating the petition. It's his or her duty to inform the public or those potential signers who you're signing for. So, I personally, I don't buy it when people come and say, well, we were fooled, we were blindfolded, we didn't know we were signing for. That's a lie. That's an absolute lie, unless you have problems of understanding or the comprehension of the English language.
Well, I hear what you're saying. There are two sides to every story. It's at this point, it's an allegation.
But remember, we're only going based on facts.
Well, okay, I'm saying though.
We're going based on culture.
We're going based on facts, and we both agree there's a process. We both agree there's a process in place.
Yes.
However, you have experienced it. The nomination paper, because I circulated nomination paper for 2 candidates. First of all, I don't approach total strangers, because if someone is running for office, you want to make sure the signature that you're collecting on behalf of that person is from registered voters who are on the active list. The supervisor of elections repeatedly put out public announcements. The signatures had to be from those who are the active registered list, not inactive. You had a member of the Board of Elections, Mary Moorhead, vilifying the election supervisor and say, no, that's not true. You're still registered. This is not that the law says, according to her, as long as you're registered, doesn't matter if you're on the active or inactive list. So when you have people in the community, and I'm calling names because facts can be verified. She repeatedly said to the public, I think that was intentional, to vilify the supervisor of election, to discredit the supervisor of election, who went according to law. You have to be active register voter.
But you know, let's be this. I'll say something. I can't even understand. I don't understand. If you have an individual, a representative like Caroline Fox, to supervise the elections, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whenever she does disqualification, whether it's for the conflict, whether it's for John Jett Hope, whether it's for Weber, you know, when she does disqualification, she indicates the reason why that individual has been disqualified. She states the law.
Exactly.
She states the law. So you're not listening to her enough. You listen to the words that come out as it pertains to her representing the law. So I'm trying to understand where's the difficulty in understanding the fact that she represents that she's stating the law. That's the reason why she disqualifies you. Another case example, you have a former Senator Weber, right?
Correct.
He was disqualified because he filed in the wrong district.
Correct.
Question: is there any excuse for him filing in the wrong district, a former candidate and a former senator, knowing?
And not former candidate, you mean former Deputy
No,
supervisor of elections.
and that too. So, exactly, and he's a former senator. So he has an
Yes.
abundance of knowledge as it pertains to election system. Why would he go to things? Why would he go and file in a wrong district? These are
But
the
you
things.
heard the saying, right? Ignorance is not an excuse for violating the law, for breaking the law.
And that's true. And then you have Mr. Hope, who apparently failed to accumulate the necessary signatures needed in order to get cured, right?
Correct.
So once again, as it pertains to petitions, for example, I had to circulate a petition for a lower line Monsanto on St. John
Yes.
in St. Croix. And when I was going to walking, I personally, I go to strangers, I go to anybody as it pertains to getting a petition signed. But every single person that approached to ask me who she, what department, what party does she represent, and what is she running for. And in return, I had to ask them questions. My question to them, the potential signers, was, are you a registered voter? Yes or no? Because I wasted my time if you're not. So see, these are confirmations that are given on both sides.
I agree with you because the nomination paper that I saw, I just had a sheet. There was no name of the candidate
Mm-hmm.
on it or what position they're running for. So it's a matter of integrity on both ends because I went to, unlike some others who went to strangers, I wasn't taking that chance because people can lie. People, and we've seen it. I saw the petition nomination petition paper for Shirley Mohead. A lot of the signatures are people who are not registered, period. Some who are registered, but they're on the inactive register list. And I'm saying that is a consequence when you walk up to a total stranger you don't know. If you're running for public office, this is my opinion. You should make sure you're getting support from people that you know. And you don't have to require that they pull out a voter registration card or anything. So it's faith on both sides. It's a matter of integrity on both sides because if you sign and you know you're not a registered voter, I think that's fraudulent too. If you not sure whether you're on the inactive or active list before you sign, find out. Okay. So I think it's on both sides, a matter of integrity, because it comes down to somebody word against. I don't know in the particular case with McClafferty, the person that is circulating, if the person give misleading information and say he is the candidate, because that's why it's alleged. It's an allegation at this point.
I know she was calling, but I don't call her name. I have a problem with that.
Call names. I am calling names today.
On the social media indicated that Javon Jim was circulating his petition. That's what's on social media. I'm only taking what was on social media. So here we go. We have experienced former senator that's circulating his petition. So when Mr. James was circulating his petition or requesting signatures, the question is, did the potential signers ask Mr. James who the individual was, or what party he was, or what he was running from? And in return, did Mr. James tell them exactly who you're signing for? Why would you sign something, a petition for an individual, you have no idea who the person is? Whether you can't see the name of it.
I agree with you because you don't see it. If you have one sheet of the nomination paper, the person's name is, the candidate's name is not in it. So I am saying I see it both ways. A matter of integrity. If you say that this person said he's the candidate,
Uh-huh.
and You never heard, because they put out the list of who candidates are, who the candidates are for each position. I saw a listing.
No. Not to cut you off. Here's a major important point. We have a Lorelai Masanto from St. Thomas, right?
Correct.
She did every single thing required by law in order for her to run for the position of Senate. She's a registered Democrat. Now here's the problem though. The SPAC disqualified Lorelai Masanto.
No, she did not.
No, hold on. What I said, she did certify Ms. Masanto as pertains to the Board of Elections. However, she said because of her party, which is a Democratic party, she said that the Democratic Party did not certify
yes
Ms. Masanto to run.
That's correct.
Right?
Correct.
Question. Is that fair?
Yes, it is. Fair? Because you knew beforehand. Like I said, ignorance is not an excuse for breaking the law.
But I'm saying that everybody has the right to run for public office. Yes or no?
Yes, you do. If you meet the eligibility requirements.
Right, regardless of party affiliation.
Well, there has been a change. Maybe you're not updated to it. There was an agreement signed between the supervisor of elections, the chair of the board of election, which is Raymond Williams, supervisor of election, Caroline Fox, and the state chair of the Virgin Islands Democratic Party,
which is Carol
Burke. Okay, so this information was public. Lorelai Masanto knew that. As a matter of fact, according to what has been alleged by Carol Burke, because I'm careful. Unless I verify information, I'm going to say allege. Lorelai Masanto went to the office of the lieutenant governor, not inquiring about if the Democratic Party is a legitimate party. Okay, so the point is, so she knew about, there was a question, she was aware of the situation.
You gotta finish up that sentence. You gotta finish up. She did require, in fact,
she did.
Was they what?
The Virgin Island Democratic Party, if it was registered with a lieutenant government office.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the answer was?
The answer is, I believe, was no. But what I am saying to you.
And the question is, how many years has the Democratic Party not been registered as an entity?
Well, this is the point. It's not required to register. It is sanctioned. It is approved by the National Democratic Party. But I don't want to delve into that too much. What I want to deal with is, because it's time consuming.
Let me just finish up that one part.
Okay.
So the public can understand what's going on. So Ms. Lorelai Masanto, she did inquire, in fact, if the Democratic Party was a licensed entity, and kind of find out they were not registered for several years, right? So at which point she herself registered for, she has registered to adopt that, to buy that actual party, Democratic Party in this version of it. And because she did that, then there was a conflict of interest that pertains to her and
she didn't follow the rules. Bottom line is, all those who were running under the Democratic banner, you can't, because you're a registered Democrat, just use the banner like that. Because there was a ruling by a federal judge, Robert Malloy. Remember, the Republican Party took the election system and the supervisor to court regarding party affairs. The party does not, no political party conducts election. An election is a public election. It's for everybody. However, you have parties that are established, political parties, and they have their own rules, the bylaws, their constitution. You have rules to follow. Now, if
But
you
you know,
don't want to
yeah,
follow the rules, then you don't want to be part of the party. Then don't
but
run as a
you know,
Democrat. Why did she choose to
well,
run as a Democrat when she knows they already had the court ruling, Judge Malloy, and then a recent one in which there was an agreement signed that they was going to implement a certification process after the candidates are, um, if they meet the statutory requirement to run for the position that they seek. Now, if
no,
they choose to
but you
run
know,
on a party, there was a
uh,
second process. They had to
uh,
go to the party, they had to obtain um, signatures from party officials. Now, if she didn't follow the rules, what do you expect? There's a consequence when you don't follow the rules.
but you know, I'm not sure if you actually know. When I ran for delegate of Congress as a Republican, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, our chairman John Yacht, he sent out the name of people that the Republican Party will represent um, in the election. Senator, former Senator Bellado, Liliana Bellado, her name was not on it, but she's still filing necessary documentation, and her name was placed on the ballot. The same identical situation was like Massachusetts.
Okay, no, it's not. Because the Republican Party, they choose not to go through that process. Like the Democrat, you see what happening is the Republican Party is stagnant. It is not growing. It's not strengthening in numbers.
I
Whereas,
can't really say that. I can't really say that because we've had an enormous amount of conversion in the Republican Party.
okay,
We
well,
have a
maybe it is. Okay,
we have an enormous amount of Democrats and independents who have converted over to the Republican Party just this last election, and it's
okay,
increasing.
it's not growing in numbers in terms of candidates. In the St. Croix district, for
Okay.
example, only one senatorial candidate
Uh,
running as a Republican, that's Raymond James. One.
uh,
I don't think on the St. Thomas, if my memory serves me correctly, not one single Republican running for the Senate. No Republican is running for delegate to U.S. House of Representatives.
that's good.
No Republican is running for governor.
Uh,
Warren
oh,
Mosler is running as an independent gubernatorial candidate. So the
yes,
Democratic
yeah.
Party has been going through some transformation. Not everybody agrees, not everybody likes it. And
Uh,
we all not going to agree, but facts can be verified. Like I said, it was an agreement made that there was going to be a certification process if you're running under the banner. So
uh,
she cannot, Laura Lyman Santo, you cannot on your own disregard the rules. Now, if you feel this is unconstitutional, there's the federal court. Go to it.
uh,
And that's
okay.
what she has refiled. Okay? She is challenging again. And that's where you
Okay.
settle legal disputes, the courts.
Did the chairman of the Democratic Party send any kind of a letter notifying Ms. Massachusetts as to the reason why probable cause was found for her
I
for that
don't
attack
know.
to put her on it?
No, I don't know.
I
I
guess they
think the
can't remember.
person, I anybody pertaining, I will mention her name because she has a show on Saturday and I call in regularly. So I am keeping abreast of what's happening with the Democratic Party. I am a registered Democrat. Previously, I was registered as a Republican. You can change your party. However, there is an organization, the Virgin Islands Democratic
You
Party.
said you wait. You said you were a registered Republican and now you registered as a Democrat.
Correct. I changed my registration this year, 2026.
From Republican to Democrat.
Yes.
You going backwards, man?
No, I going forwards.
You
And
going
the
backwards,
reason
man?
is this.
You going back in time?
No, the reason I changed,
Uh-huh.
I would like to participate in the
Uh-huh.
primary elections. I love the power I have as an electorate. Okay. I like wielding power. That's the only power I have that I can control. I am not the only one. All the voters, you imagine this is a Republican form of government that we have. The supreme power lies with the electorate because you're the one, true representative democracy, you put them in office. And I want to put my voice and record to my ballot who should be in office. And that's why I chose to change to Democrat. But there's a distinction. I am not a do pay member of the Democratic Party. And if you're running for office and you want to use the banner, it needs to stop. Where you have people using the Democratic Party banner and not adhering to the bylaws. If you are going to run for office, it's a difference. I'm just a regular registered voter. I am not seeking a public office. So, but if I was to decide I want to run as a Democrat for any office, I think I would be out of place, out of order to want to use their banner and get their support when I don't want to adhere to the bylaws. It's like any organization, Rotary Club. You have a fee to pay, you have membership fee to pay.
I'm gonna say something. Right? I understand exactly what you're saying. Here's the situation with the party, whether it's a Democrat or Republican or independent, any party affiliation. The problem we always have to, for years, is that you, for example, let's say Democratic Party. When I was a Democrat, right, it's always a handful of people that are there at different events helping out, going above and beyond. Mm-hmm. And then there's a massive amount of people who never even participate or help with fundraisers. They don't help set up the tents and the camps. They don't do absolutely nothing, but they want to benefit like the other paying dues Democrats who actually work their butts off in every election cycle. You know, so I understand the frustration of let's say for example, I'm a pay member dues Democrat. Mm-hmm. You're not a pay member. I participate, I come out on my days off and I help out when there's election going on as a paid dues member Democrat versus another Democrat who just basically is paying dues and ain't doing nothing. Of course, there's going to be discrepancies of that. There's going to be animosity. Why are you up and down with a banner or are you doing this and that and you have never done anything to help the body?
Exactly.
That's coming and that's understandable. Which is the same thing as it pertains to Republicans or any party affiliation. And that's why people ask all the time, you know, for you to pay your dues. It's just like any kind of organization, like you said, any member organization.
Like Rotary, if you're a member of a Rotary, you got to pay the dues. You can't call yourself a Rotarian and not paying no dues.
Exactly. And that's what happens, you know. So people got to understand the frustration of paying dues members versus the non-paying dues members. And then how is it you and I can get the same benefit and I pay for my dues and you pay for your dues? You see what I'm saying? So I understand the frustration for that. However, I would like to say this just be the same. The problem that we're having here in the West Islands is that the power is not being placed in the hands of the people. Hold on. This has to be a win-win situation. Every election has to be a win. If you win it and I lose it, then there's no balance here. It can't work. You can't win every election and I lose every election.
Who's winning every election?
Thank you. Every election, the people, I'll tell you right now, every election, a person winning are those candidates who are elected into office versus the people who put it in there, they lose. Question is, how are they losing, right? So
people are not voting for them. That's how. It's a number game. It's popularity. Who gets the most votes is the winner for governor. That's how it works.
Well, we know the numbers game, but at the beginning and the end of the day, the people are still losing. The reason why they're still losing, Ms. Peterson, is because everything still remains the same, regardless of the amount of money that's poured into the territory to so-called help the people in. We still have we still have an infrastructure problem, right? We still have an energy crisis problem as it pertains to WAPA, medical situation, education. I mean, the list goes on. It's too long for me to even mention, right? And none of this stuff, unless has ever been rectified, has never been stopped. So the people are constantly losing every single election. But guess what? Sometimes you got to point the finger at the people responsible for putting these people back in office to do the same thing they have done for 10 or 15 years, which is nothing.
Well, I never disrespect the will of the majority. If the majority, look at like what happened in America. You saying America is a relatively young nation. As a matter of fact, America is going to be making her 250th birthday July 4th, 2026. America has evolved. It has a history of enslavement, a slavery history, Jim Crow. But I think it is moving forward. It might be going slow, but we have rights that we don't have. We have rights today that we never had before. And I'm saying the same thing with the U.S. Virgin Islands. You still have problems in America. Look, the Second Amendment says you have the right to bear arms. Look at all the school shooting.
But we have the right at Virgin Islands. We have the right to have proper and clean infrastructure. We have the right.
We have the right. Of course, we have the right.
We have the right to have proper infrastructure. We have the right to have not to have an energy crisis. We have the right to have a light on.
All Americans do have the same rights.
But we are not given that right.
Yes, we are. We have to participate in the process.
Infrastructure for WAPA, for education, for medical situation. We don't have it in the Virgin Islands.
Yes, we do. We have the right. We have the right to have a proper hospital. We have the same rights like all Americans, except as a territory, if we reside here, we can't vote for president, and I think we should have that right too.
Right. So let me make it easy for you. Are we given that right? Let's put it that way.
We are given the right, but what's happening is this. We don't have enough people participating in the process. So the same people are voting. So when you have the same voting pool and the same candidates, you will get the same result. What you expect a change? You heard what the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result is insanity. So when if you want a different result, if you want a different set of candidates, then what you have to do is go register to vote. If you're not a registered voter, if you're complaining, are you a registered voter here in the U.S. Virgin Islands?
I always been a registered voter. I would never stop being a registered voter.
Thank you. And let's go, because we run out of time, and I want to get to the issue with Ida Smith. Ida Smith.
Oh, Lord.
I want to get to that issue because I have here some letters back in 2024, like you, both of you were on the ballot. And here, deja vu, the Board of Election is actively fighting with the Supervisor of Election, Carolyn Fox, to have this Ida Smith placed on the ballot, and she refuses to verify her residence. she has, and I have this letter that the supervisor of
Uh-huh.
election sent in 2024, October 21st, to the Honorable Garden Rhea. It's a shame we're back again to the same situation. How is it she is not being held accountable? I don't understand. Here's the letter. Dear Attorney General nominee, he was a nominee then, Rhea. I'm writing to request an investigation into a vote registration that we strongly suspect may be fraudulent. It detailed in the following paragraph. Miss Ida Smith on February 28, 2024, registered to become a USVI voter. Miss Smith sworn oath listed her residence as number 14, The Estate, John's Folly. A copy of her voter registration is attached. This same resident address was placed on all her notarized documents as per her nomination paper package for delegate to Congress, a federal position. Now they're making somebody board of election like Harriet Mercer telling me, oh, the proper title is delegate to U.S. House of Representatives. Correct, but that's not the issue. You could say delegate to Congress. Her problem isn't the title. The problem is residence, where she has her residence, where she is on the threat of perjury. She signed saying her residence is in this in St. John, Estate John's Folly. Okay, and she submitted that nomination certification on May 21st, 2024. Virgin Islands Code 18, Chapter 5, Section 100 states the requirement to register as a voter. During the verification and vetting of her nomination papers, it was ascertained that Ms. Smith listed an undeveloped piece of land as her residence. Okay? In the law, it says the street or road and number, if any, of the resident has to be listed, right? Now, the Board of Elections seem to be confused between residency and residence. A resident is the place, the dwelling, the building, the apartment, the condo, or the house that a person resides at or lives at, sleeps at, go home to. Now, for all the positions for public office, there's a residence requirement. Am I wrong or right?
You're right.
For governor, I believe it's 5 years. Now, here's the tricky part now. Again, and that's why I'm wondering, should they be called Board of Elections or Board of Corruptions or Board of Confusion? Why are you actively fighting against the supervisor of elections to put this person, Ida Smith, on a ballot when she refuses, flatly refuses? She doesn't take order. If you go and anybody, you can Google Ida Smith, Robert Malloy, where she, and this is from a judge, she doesn't respect laws and order. She has not complied with the order of Judge Malloy to remove whatever she has. She's trespassing on Hoffman property. It is not her property. She cannot produce a deed. You have a deed, right? Do you own a house?
Yes, ma'am.
You have a deed, right? Okay.
That's right.
You pay property taxes in the Virgin Islands, right?
That's right.
You were doing that when you ran in 2024, right?
Absolutely.
There was no doubt about your information. That's why you weren't requested to produce. But in her case, because there is evidence that this place that she's calling her residence is an empty lot. It is shown by the Google map. And I'm going to read the rest of this letter. I have researched Map Geo, the official mapping system of the U.S. Virgin Islands, visited the St. Thomas, St. John Lieutenant Governor's Office, Cadastral Office, and Plat number 141D Estate John Folly were not found. I am also including photos of plots with addresses in the vicinity of where one would expect the plot Miss Smith claims as residence would be. Attached are the geographical photos from Map Geo and other websites. This and other factors were used to disqualify Miss Ida Smith as a candidate for delegate to Congress office. I would like your guidance on whether your office has jurisdiction investigating this matter, or should I send my request to the United States Attorney General Office? I can be reached via email, carolinefax@vi.gov, or telephone 340-773-1021. Sincerely, Carolyn F. Fox, Supervisor of Elections. Now, all this information from 2024. We're back again. She has been disqualified. I don't see the update on that in the media. I'm awaiting, but I have the documents here with show where her nomination paper, where she certified that address. And you telling me Board of Elections, how could they go against the law? And that's the decisions they have been making. They don't understand that they're policymakers. They don't make the laws. The supervisor of the elections has to administer the laws. So the people that were disqualified, they have a right. You're entitled to due process. But what I find is the inconsistency. In the case of Jimmy Weber, he was disqualified because he filed in the wrong district, right?
Right.
How can the Board of Election overrule the law? It's not the same as a defective nomination paper. The ones that had defective nomination papers, the one, and I have copies of the document, Shelley Moorhead, he collected the required number of signatures. However, some of the signatures were invalid because some of the who signed it were either they were not registered voters or they're on the inactive registered voter list. That one I know. There is a process in place. That's a defect that can be cured. Not the other ones. Not in the case of James Weber. There's nothing in the law that specifies that. So I believe it's unlawful. However, the supervisor of election her hands seem to be tied because the last time when she went to court because of procedure, they said she as supervisor of election cannot sue the Board of Elections. So what that means, the Board of Elections could violate the law. They could usurp the authority of the supervisor of election, and what's the consequences? So I would think the other candidates, if you are disqualified and you didn't get the same treatment as James Weber, I would take the matter to court because you didn't get justice.
Every single candidate has the right to file an appeal.
To the board, right? The board of elections.
The board of elections. Everybody has a right to file an appeal. Question is, it doesn't necessarily mean that the board of elections is going to answer them when they're supposed to answer them.
But they passed a motion on the case with Jen. I don't know if that's what inspired John Hope now to pursue the matter in court, because there was a motion passed with Jen. I don't know if he requested a hearing with the board like Jimmy Weber. I don't know.
Well, Mr. President, I have to say one thing with Peterson. This is a fact. Everybody that signed the petition, right? We asked them, are you or are you not a registered voter, right? We only have the person's word to go on. Frank is an example. When I was getting my signature signed in St. Croix, St. John, right? When I was getting my signature signed, I had to go in the water. The people, I asked them, are you registered voter? I come to find out there were just a few of them that wasn't, and they told me that they were. So there's no way for me to find out right there on the spot.
I know, and that's why they suggest to you to collect more than the requisite number. If you have to collect 100, you know what? Collect 200. Okay.
And that's exactly what,
because out of the 200, maybe 100 might be accurate, valid.
Exactly my suggestion to every candidate when you gain petition signed. Do not stop at the required number. Get an exaggerated amount of names, of signatures, just in case a majority of them are not registered. We only go by the water. You know?
Exactly.
I like to say this before your show's over. We, the people of the Virgin Islands, the parliament that's existed right now, Ms. Peterson, is that we, the people, do not have power.
I disagree with you.
Huh?
I disagree.
Well, let me tell you the reason why. I feel that the power needs to be put back in the hands of the people of the Virgin Islands. And in order to do that, there are certain things that need to be done. For example, the Attorney General's position should be an elected position to the Board of Elections. The commissioners of different departments, the boards of different departments should all be an elected position by the people. We should be able to have the right to elect these people into office. It should not be appointed. For example, look what happened when you appoint Attorney General like Denise Judge. She would be forced to do what the government for her to do until she decided to say no more with a Jeffrey Epstein situation.
You're right.
You know? So if you hire me as an Attorney General, you as a governor, Ms. Peterson, and you hire Picard to make you the AG for the Virgin Islands, right? And I see corruption taking place that potentially might involve you or might involve one of your donors that help donate to your campaign. And I tell you, Ms. Peterson, I'm moving forward to prosecute this individual. And you tell me, well, I give you the position, I know. But if I tell you no, you better back down. So how many attorney generals in the past was forced to back down from prosecuting the case just because that individual had affiliation with the governor or affiliation with any politician?
Well, let me say why I disagree with you, because we run out of time. We do have the right to a constitution where, that's why I said the power lies with the people. But the situation now is there's a 6th constitutional convention. The silence is deafening from them. But that is something that could be put in there, but it should come from the people. I don't think it should come from a convention. I think the people should be able to vote on that. So at this point, but nobody's interested in that because they focus on getting elected or re-elected. But it could be on the ballot. It would be non-binding because we're still operating under the Revised Organic Act of 1954. But it could be a referendum question. Would you like the Attorney General to be an elected position. I also think it should be the judges too. Should be an elected position.
Absolutely, the judges.
But we have the power. But are you alone? You and I alone can't do it. It take a collective force. I've been advocating. I said right now on the ballot before it's printed, you should have 3 referendum questions. They will not be binding because we don't have a constitution of our own yet. But you could ask the people what they want to see an elected attorney general and an elected federal superior judges, the local judges. What they want to see that. Because the governor is asking for a referendum question on, do you want to pay 1% tax to repair roads? The senators, they're not even going to touch that one. Okay? They're not touching that one. But I'm pretty sure what would be the answer. The people probably say, hell no, we are already paying too much. But I still believe, I want to hear. Because we can't go by what we imagine. Facts can be verified. You need numbers. Numbers don't lie.
I'm going to tell you something, Ms. Peterson. The solution is right in our face. We have the solution, but the people do not want to move forward for solution. For example, people want a change, but they don't want to vote for a change.
Well, then it's whose problem? Either you're going to be part of the problem or you're going to be part of the solution. If you want a change, you can't be discrediting the supervisor of election. You can't be promoting conspiracy theories about election system like 2 members of the board of the elections, Harriet Mercer from the St. Thomas district and Cleopatra Peter from the St. Croix district. These 2 members of the board of elections are promoting distrust of the election system. The same system that put them in there. They were elected. They're talking about, oh, this is how we do it. And they want to see Ida Smith on the ballot. She should not verify residence. And hear what they say. It's in the U.S. Constitution. Well, I look at the U.S. Constitution. There is no eligibility requirement to run for delegate to U.S. House of Representatives. In the U.S. Constitution, it's talking to representatives. And in there, when elected, you have to be an inhabitant. How are they define inhabitant? Are they saying Ida Smith is not an inhabitant, but she's still entitled to run for the position? Are they saying Ida Smith is an inhabitant of the U.S. Virgin Islands? Because if she is an inhabitant of the U.S. Virgin Islands, why wouldn't she verify that? Why is she refusing to comply with laws and others? And I want to quickly go because the same 2 members of the Board of Election is discrediting Angel Bokes, the at-large senator, by saying he lives in St. Thomas. That's true. That's accurate. But apparently reading is not their forte. Read the Revised Organic Act. For the at-large, they say you have to be a bona fide resident of St. John. It doesn't say you have to reside at St. John while serving as a senator. Okay?
I gotta say this. I have to go. But before leaving, I must say this one more time to the listening audience today. In order for us to take back the Virgin Islands and put it back, the power back in the hands of the people of Virgin Islands, we must demand that we have the right to vote for major departments that people are appointed to in order for us to see a change.
Well, tell them that.
If people want to see a change, but in order to see a change, you have to vote for a change.
Thank you. That's a beautiful way of ending this. Your voice is your vote, and your vote is your voice. And anybody that is promoting and discouraging the registration of voters, especially if you're a member of the board of election, that's shameful. You should want more people to participate in the process. The more electorate you have that participate in the voting process, the more that's a better representation of what we want. Because if the majority is saying this is who they want for governor, for example, yet less than 50% of the registered voters participate, that doesn't truly reflect the minds of the majority of people residing here. It only reflects who got to vote.
I don't want to say one last thing before closing. People in West Island, listen to us. I preach this for years because I've listened for years. Do not rely on the government as the means of survival.
That's a good point.
Needs to become, at some point, become an entrepreneur. Look at yourself. Look at your family. See what you have. How can you become a businessman? How can you become an entrepreneur? You need to focus on that. You need to invest in yourself, invest in real estate, and invest in a solution where you don't have to worry about election for every 2 to 4 years to survive.
Thanks. That's good advice. Self-sufficient.
Yes, ma'am. Appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks. Have a beautiful, blessed day. It was a pleasure. We may not all agree on everything, but I like the civil dialogue. I like the perspective you bring to the table. I appreciate very much. Have a beautiful, blessed day.
You too. Be blessed.
Okay, and that was the former candidate to delegate to House of U.S. House of Representatives, Ronald Pickard. He also ran the previous year for governor. He wasn't successful, but he was eligible based on the requirements. And I am saying we need to go by law, not by feelings. Excuse me, you may feel a certain way. However, the laws are there. They should be enforced consistently. But when you're trying to enforce a law in mainstream, that creates more confusion, like the separation of the ballots for the position of delegate to U.S. House of Representatives. Yes, it is in the federal law. It's also in the Virgin Islands Code, but it hasn't been enforced. And now to come and enforce it when it's discriminatory, I should mention, because it's only applicable to the U.S. Virgin Islands. And the Guam is under the Revised Organic Act of 1954. In Guam, there's only a single ballot. So the law has to keep up. The law has to be constantly amended to reflect the present circumstances. What laws we have today may not be applicable in the future because it's a different time. Technology, different inventions. For example, today, you can register online. And I'm going to end with this. I urge you, if you have not registered, to go register online. It's easy, take less than 10 minutes. Go to vivote.gov. For more information about political affairs and other affairs, I welcome you to join Virgin Islands Affairs Forum. That's a Facebook group. You can give your input there pertaining to all the affairs of the U.S. Virgin Islands. You can give your input and your inquiries also on the WSTX Facebook page. Thanks for listening. Live, listen, learn, love, and